Ramadan, 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 Ramadan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Shafil Anbiya wal Mursaleen. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The first hadith which we are going to look at is a hadith which can be found in Sahih Muslim. There once a companion in the name of Hamza bin Ammar al-Aslami. He asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that when I'm on a journey, I have enough strength, I have enough capability and enough ability to fast. So he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, can I fast whilst I'm traveling? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied by saying that this order or the command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to fast whilst traveling is a concession. So you can accept this concession, i.e. you can choose not to fast, but if you do decide to fast, then there is no sin in it. Now this hadith, from the words of this particular hadith, is telling us that a traveler, a person who's traveling, he's got a choice of fasting during the month of Ramadan, or number two, he also has the option not to fast during the month of Ramadan. However, if a person does decide to fast, then it is considered more virtuous and it is considered more rewardable. And why is it considered more virtuous to fast whilst traveling? The answer is simple, and that is because there is more mujahada, there is more effort, there is more hardship required. And the more hardship, the more effort you go through, the more endeavor you put into your ibadat and into your worship, the more reward and the more thawab you will get. That's why those people who wake up for tahajjud, there's more effort there, there's more of hardship there, there's a lot of reward for waking up for tahajjud. Those people who fast during the summer months, the long hours, more effort, more endeavor, more hardship, the more reward. Those people who do other kind of difficult things, other things where there's a lot of hardship, but just for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is a lot of reward and there is a lot of thawab. And that's why it's mentioned in a hadith which can be found in Sunan al-Bayhaqi, that on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will call out to the people who are on the plane, who are going to be questioned regarding their deeds and their actions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will call out, where are those people? يدعون ربهم تتجافى جنوبهم عن المضاجع يدعون ربهم خوفا وطمعا, which means that where are those people who left their warm, comfortable duvets and worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the middle of the night with the intention of reward and thawab? So people will stand up. Those people who were habitual tahajjud prayers, they will stand up, they will come forward, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to them, here, go to Jannah, there is no hisab and there is no questioning regarding you, enter Jannah and enter paradise. So that is the reward for those people who, the more effort you put in your ibadat, the more reward you get. So what we can gather from this hadith is that you got an option when you are traveling not to fast. However, if you do keep the fast, then there is more reward and there is more thawab in that. Now let's look at this particular hadith, but this time in a bit more in detail, looking at it from the jurisprudence aspect. First and foremost, who is a traveler? If, say, for example, someone is going from Birmingham to Coventry, so does that mean that this person doesn't have to fast? If a person is going from here to Leicester, does that mean that he has a rukhsa or he has this concession from the Sharia not to fast? So first and foremost, we need to determine who is a traveler, who is a musafir. Now, a traveler or a musafir is someone who is going to a place which is more than 48 miles away. As soon as you go to a place or you intend to travel to a place where it's more than 48 miles, then you are automatically termed as a musafir and as a traveler. So just say, for example, you're planning to go from Birmingham to London, more than 48 miles, Birmingham to Manchester, more than 48 miles, Birmingham to Luton, more than 48 miles, then you are considered to be a traveler. And one ruling with regards to traveling is that as soon as you leave the boundaries of your city, you are automatically deemed or termed to be a traveler and a musafir, even though you haven't actually at that moment in time traveled 48 miles. So let me give you an example. Just say you're going from Birmingham to London, but you left your city, you left the motorways and so on, and just say 10 miles down the road, you go to a service station and you want to now pray your Dhuhr Salah. So even though you haven't actually traveled 48 miles yet, but because you are planning to go to a place which is more than 48 miles, so as soon as you stop over at the service station, you will now pray 2 rakats Dhuhr and not 4, even though you haven't actually traveled 48 miles yet. Because as soon as you leave the boundaries of the city, that's it, you're now termed as a traveler and a musafir. So similarly, those who are termed as a musafir or a traveler, they have two, you could say, concessions. One is that their 4 rakat prayers are now cut to 2. So for Dhuhr, Asr and Isha, instead of praying 4, they'll now pray 2. And obviously Fajr will remain 2 and Maghrib will remain 3. Not 1.5, okay, but it will remain 3. Okay, so that will be the Salah. So that's one concession. And then the next concession is with regards to fasting. That those people who are now musafir, termed musafir, they have this leeway and concession not to fast. So that is the first ruling. Another ruling here, which is very, very important, is that it needs to be borne in mind that this concession not to fast applies to those brothers who at the time of Fajr are in the state of traveling. Now the reason why is that in the Quran it's quite clearly mentioned, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ. أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ means those who are in the state of traveling. Now the fasting period, it starts from Fajr, so Subh Sadi basically from Fajr, that's when we start fasting from. So just say today's Fajr was at 4:08, I think it started. So basically from 4:08 all the way up to Adhan time, 8:40ish, whatever. So that is the fasting period. So the ruling is that, at Fajr time, if someone is a traveler at that particular time, only he or she has the rukhsa and has the concession not to fast. If someone at that time is not a traveler, but you call him in Arabic a mukim, still a resident, but he then plans to travel later on that particular day, this individual does not have the concession of not to fast. So just say, for example, somebody at 4 o'clock in the morning, he's still at home, he's still in Birmingham. But 11 o'clock he's got flight to go to Bangladesh. But at 4 o'clock in the morning, he's still at home, he's still considered to be a mukim and a resident. So that individual, he doesn't have the option not to fast, meaning that he has to fast. Even though later on in the evening, later on in the day or in the morning, he's got a flight to go out to Bangladesh or Pakistan or whatever. But at that particular time, because he is still a mukim, a resident, he is still obliged to fast. He doesn't have the leeway not to fast. However, just say for example, the following day when he's now making his way towards Bangladesh and he's on the plane, and the next day when he's now flying over various countries, so now because he's a musafir, a traveler, so therefore he has the option not to fast, say, the coming days. But on the day of the flight, if he's at Fajr time, if he's at home, that person doesn't have the leeway not to fast, but instead he is required and it is obligatory for him to fast. One final ruling with regards to those who are on journey, and a very common question, is that when you are going from, say, UK to another country, like Bangladesh or Pakistan, whatever, the question normally brothers ask is, what time shall we do our sehri and what time shall we do our iftar? Okay, that's like the question which people ask. Now, to tell the truth, if you're traveling to the east, from the UK to the east, it's not that big a problem because the actual hours increase when you're going to the east. So it shouldn't be a problem. So just an example, like you're traveling from UK to Europe. So obviously, as you know, Europe is always 1 hour early. So when you're traveling to the east, then it's very simple. The way you work it out is that if it's on for Sehri, try to follow the UK calendar, the UK timetable. So for Sehri, so just say for example, like Sehri is at 4 o'clock. So you try to work it according to that. And then for iftar, when you look outside the window, just say you're on a plane and you look outside the window and you see it getting a bit dark, then at that time you will break your iftar. The difficulty will be the other way around, where, for example, if you are traveling from the UK but to the west, like to America, to Canada, where obviously the days will be increasing, the hours will be increasing, instead of actually like the hours kind of go back. So for that situation, obviously, as you can gather, the number of hours which you will have to fast will be very, very difficult. It'll probably increase. Instead of like fasting, say 16 hours, it'll probably be like 20 hours or 24 hours and so on. So it'll be a bit more longer, but the ruling is the same, and that is that when you are traveling to the west, say to America or to Canada, so you'll just be in the state of fasting, and when you arrive at that particular country, and when it's dark, then at that particular time you will break your iftar. So that is a ruling with regards to how to keep a fast whilst traveling. The second hadith which we are going to look at is a hadith, this time, which can be found in Sunan al-Tirmizi. And the words of the hadith are that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that fasting during winter is a reward gained without difficulty. So fasting during winter is a reward, is a thawab gained without difficulty. Now, what this particular hadith is telling us is that, as you already know, that there's so much reward in fasting. You know, there's a lot of immense reward in fasting. Now, what this hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is trying to say is that during the winter, when you're only fasting for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, you are stacking up so much reward and so much thawab, but you're not feeling anything. There's no difficulty. In the summer, it's a bit more difficult. Like now, it's a bit more difficult, the long hours and so on. So around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the evening, slowly, you get that feel of thirst, you get that feel and the urge of hunger. So it's a bit more difficult, but there's more mujahada, there's more effort, and as I already explained before, there's more reward. However, when you're fasting during the winter, so look, you're fasting where there's so much thawab, so much reward, but you're only fasting for 7 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, max, that's it. And after that, you're breaking your iftar at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So you're getting so much reward, but there's like hardly any difficulty or hardly any hardship. Those of you who probably remember 6-7 years ago when the iftar was at 4 o'clock and so on, it was so easy. Especially for restaurant workers, they'll wake up at 3:55 and then just wake up and have the iftar and then go to work and so on. So very easy and so easy to fast. For anyone, it was even for kids as well. It was very easy for kids to fast at that time because you wake up very late and next thing you're only hungry for 2-3 hours and then you break your iftar and then it's normal as usual. But during the summer, it's very, very difficult. So that's what Rasulullah is trying to point out here, that during the winter, you're getting so much reward for fasting, but there's no difficulty in fasting. So that's why there is more reward and there is more thawab. The third hadith which we're going to look at is a hadith which can be found in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Now the words of the hadith narrated by Sayyidah Aisha anha, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam during the month of Ramadan or sometimes during the month of Ramadan, he would start his fast in the state of janaba. He would start his fast in the state of janaba. I'll explain the word janaba in a second. Not because of a wet dream, min ghayri ihtilam, but due to intercourse. Thereafter, he would then take a ghusl, i.e. a ritual bath, and then complete the fast and complete the roza. Now this is a very important masla which we're going to look at, a very important hadith and a very common question which people ask here. Before we look at the hadith, the first ruling here is that if a person whilst fasting was to have a wet dream, his fast doesn't break. Okay, so for example, if somebody in the state of fasting, just say after Fajr he went to sleep and then he had a wet dream whilst fasting, then his fast and his roza doesn't break. Now let's look at this particular hadith here. The hadith here is telling us that Sayyid Aisha Anha is narrating that sometimes Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would start his fast in the state of janaba. Now what does janaba mean? Janaba is an Arabic word which means that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would be in need of a ritual bath, in need of a ritual ghusl. When I say ritual bath or ghusl, I mean that when a man has intercourse or when a man has a wet dream. So before he could come into the masjid, before he could pray salah, before he could touch the Quran, it's first that he has a bath first and then he does those kind of things. Obviously, if he doesn't have a bath and he comes and prays salah and touches the Quran, then it's a very, very grave sin. So what he has to do is that he needs to have a ritual bath. But what this hadith is telling us is that sometimes Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would start his fast, but he would be in that particular state. I will be in the state of janaba, and he hadn't had his ghusl yet. He hadn't gone for his ritual bath yet. So what we can gather from this particular hadith is to start the fast in the state of janaba, like in the state of uncleanliness, in need of a bath, then that is permissible, that is allowed, and the subsequent fast which you keep, that will be accepted. So what I mean, just say for example, like, just say somebody was sleeping before Sahri, and just say he woke up at 3:30, or just say 3:45, he woke up quite late. And when he woke up, he had a wet dream. Now he thinks that, look, if I go and have a shower and bath and then come back, I won't have the opportunity to do Sahri. So what does he do? He just probably washes his mouth, washes his hand, he eats, and then the fasting period starts, say at Fajr time. Just say today Fajr was at 4:08. So at 4:08, his fasting period started. So then at that time, he then goes for a bath, he then goes for a shower, and then he prays his Fajr. So what this hadith is telling us is to do in that particular way, that is allowed. That doesn't affect your fast or anything like that, and your fast and your roza would be accepted. Now there's a word here which is mentioned in the hadith where it says min ghayri ihtilam. The Arabic word says min ghayri ihtilam, which means that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be in the state of janaba, i.e. in need of a bath and a ghusl, but it's not because of a wet dream. Now from this the scholars have derived that the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam, so it's not just Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but all the Anbiya, all the prophets of Allah, all the messengers of Allah, they don't or they cannot have a wet dream. They cannot have a wet dream. The only time they're in the state of janaba is when they have had intercourse with their wives. But just generally speaking, they cannot have a wet dream. And the main reason why they cannot have a wet dream is because wet dreams and janaba comes from shaitan. It comes from satanic insinuations where shaitan puts thoughts into your mind, evil thoughts into your mind, bad thoughts in your mind, which obviously causes you to ejaculate and so on in your sleep. So as I've mentioned many times before, that the Prophet ﷺ and all the Anbiya ﷺ, they were actually free from any kind of, satanic insinuations. It's mentioned a very famous hadith of Sahih Muslim, that Rasulullah ﷺ once said to the companions that every individual, okay, so every one of us here, we have a qareeb. Qareeb means a companion from the devil with us, from the shayateens with us, and we also have a companion from the angels with us. So the companion from the angel, so a good angel who's with us, he's always encouraging us to do good things, to do good actions, that, okay, pray salah, recite Quran, do this, do that. And then at the same time, we got evil shayateen or an evil devil with us, and he's always encouraging us to do something bad, like not to pray salah, not to recite Quran, to do that sin, that sin, and so on and so forth. So then the companions asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that even you, Ya Rasulullah, that even you, do you have a evil companion with you? Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied by saying, fa aslama, even me, but my evil companion has become a Muslim. Fa aslama, meaning that because of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam barakah, that evil companion, that evil devil who was there, he actually has become a Muslim. He's converted towards Islam. So instead of like, trying to do anything bad to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's kind of encouraging Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to do good. So because of that reason, the scholars have said that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and also Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam, messengers, they cannot have a wet dream. Okay, the only time they can come into the state of janaba is when they have intercourse with their wives. But just generally speaking, unlike you and I, obviously they are free from satanic insinuations. So therefore, shaitan cannot, mingle with their minds in terms of giving bad thoughts or evil thoughts. The prophets and the Anbiyas and the messengers are free from that. The next couple of hadiths which we'll look at, they're the same, so I'm just going to mention the hadiths together, and then the ruling which is derived, I'll explain it afterwards. Now the next two hadiths is with regards to i'tikaf. So from next week, I think the next Saturday or Sunday, we will start the last 10 days of i'tikaf. So I'll just mention some things with regards to i'tikaf and how to do the i'tikaf. Now the two hadiths here, the first hadith, famous hadith of Sahih Bukhari, narrated by Sayyidina Ibn Umar radhiyallahu anhu, where it says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would observe i'tikaf during the last 10 nights of Ramadan. So during the last 10 nights of Ramadan, the last 10 days of Ramadan, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be in i'tikaf. And then the next hadith of Sunan Ibn Majah says that a person observing i'tikaf remains free from sins, and he receives the same reward as those who carry out righteous deeds or righteous actions. What I mean by that is because, remember, staying in the masjid, that's a ibadat in itself. Even now, we're in the masjid, so we actually doing ibadat. So the same way if somebody was to go, say, upstairs, or just say was to go home and he was like praying nafil salah for, say, 45 minutes or so, we sitting in the masjid going to get the exactly same reward as he is getting. Because we sitting in the masjid with the intention of i'tikaf, we getting reward for that. Sometimes people think that, let's go outside and do, why are we doing everything in the masjid? Right? If you make the intention of i'tikaf and you sit in the masjid, so every moment you spend in the masjid, you'll get reward, you'll get thawab. So even like having, say, a discussion or a meeting in the masjid, as long as the meeting's got to do with the masjid, say, or religious orientated, so even you have a meeting in the masjid and you're going to be sitting in the masjid for 2 hours, you make the intention of reward, so of i'tikaf, you'll get reward and thawab for every second you spend in the masjid. So this is what this particular hadith is saying, is that someone who just sits in the masjid, just like relaxing in the masjid, him and that person who outside or at home praying nafil ibadat, say, for 2 hours, and that person just relaxing in the masjid for 2 hours, him and that person exactly the same in terms of reward. The same way he's getting reward for worship and for salah, this person staying in the masjid is also getting the exact same reward and the exact same thawab. Now let's have a look at the masla with regards to i'tikaf. Now there's different categories of i'tikaf, but there's two which obviously applies to us. The first one is called sunnat i'tikaf. And sunnat i'tikaf is the last 10 days of the month of Ramadan. Okay? So that is sunnat. And the scholars have written that it's sunnat muaqqada ala al-kifaya, which basically means that if no one from the community or from the masjid do the i'tikaf, then the whole community will be sinful. So that's why you see that in every masjid they at least, find someone or sometimes, forcefully make someone sit in i'tikaf so they don't get the sin and so on. But anyway, so you have to sit in i'tikaf, otherwise everyone will be sinful. And the second category of i'tikaf is known as a nafil i'tikaf. Now nafil i'tikaf is something very simple. Nafil i'tikaf basically means there's no time for Ramadan, that's not a condition, that's not a prerequisite. Anytime you come into the masjid, so it could be on a Monday, Tuesday, Friday, it could be whether it's a blessed night or a not so blessed night, any night or any day, any time of the moment you come into the masjid, you make the intention of i'tikaf. So every moment or second you spend in the masjid, you will get reward and thawab for that. So you come in the masjid, say you just come here to pick up a book from the shelves. So 10 seconds probably take you to come get the book and then go out. But you enter the masjid, you make the intention of i'tikaf. So the 10 seconds it takes you to pick up a book and then leave the masjid, you'll get reward and you'll get thawab for that. So that is nafil i'tikaf. Now we're going to look at rulings with regards to sunnat i'tikaf firstly, and then I'll explain some rulings with regards to nafil i'tikaf thereafter, and in particular for women and sisters who do i'tikaf, how to do i'tikaf, especially at home. Now with regards to sunnat i'tikaf, because it's sunnat i'tikaf, the conditions are a bit more stricter. Now i'tikaf basically means that you remain in the masjid. Now do you know this term masjid, it's very broadly used. In Islam or in Islamically, a masjid isn't the building. When we talk about masjid Islamically, we don't talk about the wuzu area. We're not talking about the toilets. We're not talking about the corridor here. Masjid Islamically means that place where the 5 daily prayers take place, i.e. that place which has been intended for a masjid. So obviously an example would be like this room here, or like for example the room above or the hall above. So these two places are considered to be a masjid. The imam's office is not considered to be a masjid. The kitchen is not considered to be a masjid. If you have a library upstairs, then that library where there's just books and so on, that's not considered to be a masjid. So what we mean by doing sunnat i'tikaf, it means that you have to stay in the masjid for the 10 days. Now that doesn't mean that, alright, like you're staying in the masjid and then, in the afternoon you just like want to go outside for a walk or a stroll or something like that. If you do that, your i'tikaf's going to break. Or just like for example leaving the masjid and just going for a stroll around the passage, your i'tikaf is going to break. Or going upstairs to the imam's room and chatting to the imam or reading the papers or something like that, your i'tikaf will also break. So what I'm trying to say is that it's very strict, the sunnat i'tikaf. The reason I'm saying is that unfortunately many brothers who do i'tikaf, they just like, roam around the masjid. They go here, they go there, and strictly speaking, the i'tikaf is breaking. As soon as you step outside that room, the masjid, without any reason, your i'tikaf's broken. So it's something which is very, very strict. So remember, brothers, if any brothers are doing i'tikaf this year or have made intention for i'tikaf, you have to remain in the masjid. The only time you can leave, obviously, is that if you want to go to the toilet and do wudu, then it's allowed. And obviously, if you've had, a wet dream, whilst in the masjid, you've had a wet dream, you fell asleep and you had a wet dream, then obviously you can leave the masjid, have a shower, a bath, and then come back to the masjid. But even like for the ghusl for Jummah, the sunnah ghusl, scholars have said you're not supposed to be leaving the masjid for that. So what I'm trying to say is that it's very, very strict. You have to remain in the masjid. You can't go outside. If you were to go outside or leave the actual hall, then your i'tikaf breaks. This takes me on to the next category, which is the nafil i'tikaf. Now, nafil i'tikaf is something which is very, very flexible. Nafil i'tikaf basically means that any moment, like as soon as you come into the masjid, you make the intention of i'tikaf. And as soon as you leave, that's it, your reward is finished. But nothing breaks. So just say, for example, like someone, he wants to do i'tikaf, but he's got work in the morning or something like that, and the bosses or his managers not letting him, give him a holiday or something. So in that situation, he could still do i'tikaf, but the way he will do it is that as soon as he finishes his work, he'll come into the masjid, he'll make the intention nafil i'tikaf, and he will stay in the masjid for 6, 7, 8 hours, and then the following morning he will then go back to work and so on, and this is how we do it. But he'll get the reward of nafil i'tikaf, but not of the sunnah i'tikaf. Now this takes me on to, with regards to women who are doing i'tikaf at home. With regards to women, if they, again, are planning to do sunnah i'tikaf, what they will do is that they will designate a place in their home. So it could be a room where they normally pray the salah, it could be any other rooms. They will designate a place and they will do i'tikaf there. Okay, so they will just designate a place and they will sit in that place and they will do i'tikaf. Now, if they are intending to do sunnah i'tikaf, then the same conditions which are mentioned with regards to men leaving the masjid, the same conditions applies for women as well. So, i.e., women without any reason, they won't be allowed to leave that particular room. Especially like, for example, mothers who may have children and so on, they can't leave, if they're planning to do sunnah i'tikaf, they can't leave the room and go downstairs and do the household chores, do the cooking, do the washing, and then come back and then expect that they're still doing sunnah i'tikaf. That's not going to be allowed. It has to be strictly observed that if they are planning to do sunnah i'tikaf, they have to stay in that particular room. The only time they can leave the room is like with men, if they need to go to a toilet or the bathroom, then they can. But besides that, they're not allowed to go downstairs to the kitchen and do the household chores, do the cooking. They're not allowed to go outside and wash their clothes and hang their clothes outside. They won't be allowed to do that. And I think I mentioned this before as well, that my personal opinion is that for women, if they want to do itikaf, it's more best that they do nafil itikaf rather than sunnah itikaf at home. Because I've realized many women who do itikaf at home, very few of them actually abide by the conditions which the Sharia has laid. Many of them, they do itikaf, but then they go downstairs and they help out in the kitchen. They go outside. They just do, put the washing out, they do the washing and so on. Strictly speaking, they're not allowed to do that. The household chores, they're not allowed to do that for those 10 days. But many women, because, especially mothers, because they got children to look after and they got other kind of family, they have to look at other stuff as well. So they find it difficult. So for them, it's more appropriate and preferable they do nafil itikaf instead. And nafil itikaf, which basically means that in the morning, whatever, they could do all the cooking, and then afterwards they could just go into their room and make the intention nafil itikaf and stay there for the rest of the day, and they'll get reward and they'll get thawab for that. So it's more preferable and it's more advisable that they do nafil and optional itikaf rather than sunnah itikaf. One more hadith, and inshallah we will, actually two more hadiths, then inshallah we'll finish. The next hadith is very quickly, is a hadith which can be found in Sunan Tirmidhi. And this talks about someone who omits fasting during the month of Ramadan. So it's narrated by Sayyidina Abu Hurairah anhu that if a person misses a fast during the month of Ramadan without any reason. So just say, for example, without any reason, he wasn't ill, he wasn't traveling, but for some reason he didn't want to fast. He didn't want to fast. So the hadith goes on to say that after the month of Ramadan, if he does qaza of that particular fast, now if he was to fast for his whole lifetime, he would not be able to compensate for the day that he missed during the month of Ramadan. Okay? So basically what this hadith is saying is that you missed a fast during the month of Ramadan for some reason, then after Ramadan, if you want to do qada, so the hadith is saying is that even if you were to fast your whole lifetime, that would not replicate or compensate the day which you missed during the month of Ramadan. Now, missing a fast during the month of Ramadan is a grave sin. It's a big sin. We're not talking about someone who breaks here, that's even more bigger. We're just talking about someone without any reason, just said, I can't be asked, I'm not going to fast tomorrow. And he just goes work and just takes the day as normal, spends it as normal, has breakfast and lunch and everything. Then that is a grave sin. And what this hadith is saying is that you cannot replicate. So even afterwards, if Allah gives him tawfiq and hidayat and he tries to do qadha, so the hadith is saying that even if he was to fast every day for the rest of his lifetime, he would not be able to compensate for the fast which he missed during the month of Ramadan. Now what I'll just give you an example here, and then you'll probably understand what I mean by how and why wouldn't he be able to compensate. Because when you look at it, logically, you think, if he was to fast his rest of his lifetime, he'll be able to compensate for that particular day. But why wouldn't he able to compensate that particular fast which he missed during the month of Ramadan? I'll give you an example. There's a great scholar whose name is Maulana Abdul Hayy Lakhnawi rahmatullah alayh. He's written a story. The story is that there was once this pious person, and something happened and he missed his salah with jamaat and with congregation. So something happened and he missed his salah with congregation. So as all of you know that when you pray salah with congregation, you get 27 times more reward. So then that person, he thought to himself, you know what? Because I missed my salah with congregation, so basically I'm 27 times reward, in arrears here. So what I'll do is that I'll pray that same farz 27 times. So what he did was that he started praying the farz, the same namaz, he started praying it 27 times. After he prayed it the 27th time, an angel, so a voice came from an angel, and the angel said to him, فَأَيْنَ أَنْتَ مِنْ تَعْمِينِ الْمَلَائِكَةِ? Where are you going to get the reward for the angels saying Ameen to your Ameen? What I mean by that is that, again, there's another hadith of Sahih Bukhari when it says that when they pray salah in congregation, and when the imam says, غَيْرِ مَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, and the people behind also say Ameen, the angels, they also say Ameen as well. And the hadith goes on to say that whoever's Ameen coincides with the angels' Ameen, then all their previous sins will be forgiven. So, what the angel was trying to say is that, look, you're praying 27 times by yourself, but the angels are not saying Ameen to your Ameen. So that reward you're missing out. So even though you try to pray this same salah 27 times or even 100 times, you're not going to get that same reward and that same feeling. Exactly same with regards to fasting. You missed a fast during the month of Ramadan. So after Ramadan, you try to do qadha the rest of the year, every day you're fasting. You won't be able to compensate the same barakah, the same blessings, the same nur and light which you get for fasting in the month of Ramadan. So that's what this particular hadith is telling us, that you miss a fast. And that's why even like when you're traveling as well here, even though the Sharia, as I explained before, has given you a leeway that you don't have to fast, but it's still advisable that you do fast. Because that feeling of fasting in the month of Ramadan, you can't compensate it afterwards. Especially ask women who are on their periods. They'll tell you during the month of Ramadan, they can't fast, 10 days they can't fast. So afterwards, when they try to fast, they will say to themselves like, it's not the same, it's not normal. Because fasting month of Ramadan, the beauty, the barakah, the blessing, you can't compensate it, somewhere else. It's like, for example, praying salah in the haram, in front of Baytullah, in front of the house, or in front of Masjid al-Nabawi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can't replicate it, say, praying salah here. There's so many examples where, blessed places, blessed times when you pray salah or when you do something, you won't be able to replicate it somewhere else in the world. So exactly same with regards to this hadith. And just finally one hadith here. This is a hadith of Sahih Muslim, very famous hadith, narrated by Sayyidina Abu Hurairah anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that if anyone forgets that he is fasting and he eats or drinks, then he should complete his fast, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has fed him and has quenched him. Basically, what's this a very simple ruling here is that if someone forgetfully was to eat or drink whilst fasting, then your fast doesn't break. Again, a common question brothers ask sometimes, like when they're fasting, they totally forgot, totally slipped their mind that they were fasting, and what happened? They ate something. So if you eat whilst fasting and you ate out of forgetfulness, totally slipped your mind that you were fasting, then your fast doesn't break. Quite clearly mentioned the hadith here that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is advising that individual to complete his fast, and the food or what he ate or what he drank, it is though that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spiritually had fed him or spiritually had quenched him. Inshallah, we'll just leave it here for this week. May Allah give us tawfiq to act upon the hadith which have been said. Wa akhiru da'wan alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. If you have any questions they would like to ask?
What's the intention? You have to say verbally. You don't know when to cast.
Yeah, you don't have to say verbally. You could just make the intention, that would be sufficient. Yeah, like normal, like in your heart. Yeah.
So the itikaf, is it only during the last 10 days or is it any time of the year? The intention when you come to the nafal one?
Yeah, nafal, you could do it whenever. You could do it whenever.
Sunnah itikaf be less than 10 days?
No, you can't. It has to be 10. So if someone, like for example, is planning to do itikaf, say for 3 days or 5 days, whatever, it's not sunnah itikaf. So each masjid needs to have someone doing a sunnah itikaf. Just say if a masjid can't find anyone, but they find someone who's only going to be doing itikaf for 5 days, that's not going to be sufficient. Everyone's going to be sinful. Even those people, again, another thing which needs to be highlighted, sometimes what happens is that the masjid, they get someone to do itikaf who for some reason due to diabetes, whatever, he cannot fast. Again, that's not going to be accepted. Because someone who's not fasting during the month of Ramadan due to diabetes or other kind of illness, if he does itikaf in the masjid, that's going to be considered as nafal. It won't be considered to be the sunnah one. So he has to be someone who's fasting, he has to be doing itikaf. So that's important to realize as well.
If you're a traveler and you're going to read the Jamaat namaz, in Jamaat, what's the ruling on that?
If you're traveling, you don't have to. No.
For instance, like from here to Luton, and I go into mosque and I'm reading with Jamaat.
Okay. If you are praying with Jamaat, Oh, yeah, then you pray 4 rakats behind the imam. Read 4. Yeah.
And if you're late for that, like you just missed the first 2 of Zuhr, do you just do 2?
No, you do 4.
Oh, because you joined the
Yeah,
Jamaat.
because you join the Jamaat. Okay, so if you prayed behind so you're a traveler, so if you join the imam, so if you miss 2 rakats, then you have to pray 4 with the imam, not 2, your own 2, I think that's what, you know. You have to pray for the full 4. If you're traveling, the ruling is that if someone is traveling, if he's on the go meaning like he has to rush straight away after the salah, then the sunnahs are forgiven. But if he's going to be staying there for like a few hours or a few days and so on, then he's still required of him to pray the sunnah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. اللهم أنت السلام منك السلام تبارك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا ورزقا طيبا وشفاء من كل داء اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا